Hi everyone, it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and I'm here today with a sneak peek of the Flavor of the Month card kit for November of 2020. This is the last card kit, and I'm very sad, but I'm very happy for Teresa that she's retiring and going to spend more time with her family and crafting, so good luck to her. But this is my very first waterfall card that I ever made, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to walk you through the don'ts to do when you're making a waterfall card today. It's a standard A2 size card, so 5.5 by 4.25. You're going to need some layering panels for the front at 5.25 by 4 inches, and then by 2 inches by 5.25. You're going to need 4 4x4 squares of pattern paper, 4 3x3 squares that are going to be for your stamped images or sentiments. You're going to need a piece that's 8 inches by 1 inch. You're going to need a piece at 9.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and then another piece at 3.5 by 3.25 inches, and about a ribbon about 3 inches long. Now you're going to score the 9.5 by 3.5 inch piece at 3.25, 3.5, 3 3/4, 4 inches, and 4.25. Now, I will tell you that this piece of paper is not 9.5 inches, it's 8.5 inches, but you will see why at the end that you want that little extra length on there to make sure that the mechanism works properly and pushes it back in where it needs to be. Now you're going to fold all the score lines in the same direction. And I finger folded this first, and then I went back with my bone folder because I wanted to kind of make sure that it stayed straight, and since it's only 1/4 inch space between. Now I will say, when you're doing 1/4 inch spacing like this so close together, a scoreboard is really, really good to use as opposed to trying to use like a trimmer or something like that, or using your just like a ruler and doing it on your mat, your craft mat or something, because you'll get a better line with that. So once you got all of this folded, you're just gonna, like I said, go back over everything with the bone folder and make sure, and again, this is all going in the same direction. Now, one of the sides is going to be longer and one of the sides is going to be shorter between or on each side of the score lines. So that's going to be important when you're putting your mechanism together to know which one is going to be the shorter side and which one is the longer side. So that is the mechanism. So really, other than scoring your card base and scoring this panel, that's all the scoring that you need to do. Now I'm going to use some really strong adhesive tape. I'm using double side, and this is 1/8 inch. I thought about using 1/4 inch, but I didn't want it to overlap. I don't think it would really matter, to be honest, but just in case, I wanted to make sure that it didn't, so I just used that 1/4 inch. And then I actually just put this on the side. So you're going to put score tape in between all of the score lines, but don't go over the score lines. So not on either side of the first and the last score line. Then I'm just going to put all of these pieces together. Now you can make these smaller if you want to. You can also make the layering panel or the panel with the images on there larger. I wanted more of the pattern paper to show out, so that's why I made them 1 inch different. So there's a 1/2 inch all the way around that is going to show through. And like I said, the reason why I did that was because I wanted more. You could certainly do 3 3/4 square. You could certainly do 3 1/2, 3 1/4, you know, whatever you want to do. Now again, this is a sneak peek, so I did stamp the image and color them, as well as stamp the sentiments, and I have that all ready to go. And I didn't want this to be too long, so I wanted to make sure you kind of saw how this was going to work. So then I'm going to remove the backing off of all of the score tape that I have on there. And then you're going to place, starting with the one that's going to be furthest back, so the very last one, and you're going to place that in between the last 2 score lines. So the last 2 score lines that you made, the 4 inches and 4.25 inches. And then in between each of the score lines, you're going to add one. So there'll be like 4 little compartments that you're able to add these. Now the big thing is you want to make sure that they line up so that it looks good when they're all lined up together. And this really isn't hard at all, and the mistakes I made were just, I don't even, because I wasn't thinking. I made this like twice before I actually made this card, and I didn't have half as many problems as when I was actually making the card. So there you go. So now you have the little mechanism, you have the panel, and it's folded in half there, and so that's how the mechanism works. It's going to roll over and flip up all of those panels as it rolls through. Now this is going to be the part that's going to let it slide back and forth. And right here, all I'm going to do is just fold it over and kind of make sure that it's the right size and everything's going to fit properly and stuff. So I just kind of held that and wanted to make sure that. And then you're going to put it on the side for a minute. And then add in the back. So when you have it folded over and you have all your panels on the front, you're going to add that extra piece that I said, that was the 3.5 by 3 1/4, and that'll give it a little stability on the back mechanism part to have it slide in and out easier when you're actually doing this. Now this is a good time to add your ribbon. Now you'll see here I'm going to end up taking this ribbon out that I used because there's a couple of reasons. You can use a 2-inch piece if you make the longer card, because then it won't matter. But because I made my panel too short, this 2-inch piece wasn't long enough to be able to pull out the card as it went around. So adhering it in between and kind of making a sandwich out of the ribbon really helps it and makes it more stable. So you do definitely want to do that. But because then I adhered this down, I ended up having to go back and do it differently. So the next thing you do on the back panel, not on the piece that has the ribbon, but on the other panel, the back to where that last panel is for the cards that are going to flip, or the squares that are going to flip, you can adhere that down, and just that back panel. But don't do that until you put in the slide through part. So you see I'm trying to pull this apart as carefully as possible so I don't mess it up. At least there was layers. And then the center piece for that strip, you're going to put on the back. And like I said, if I would have done this all correctly, it gives it a lot of stability to hold it in place between the two. And then putting that back panel on gives it a lot of stability. So then there is where I kind of figure out that this is not long enough and it's not going to work. So I get some more ribbon, like I said, that is 3 inches. And I pull this one out, and once I realize that it's not going to work properly because my panel isn't long enough. You see where I have that inch there or so? That's where that extra space is going to go. And like I said, make it much easier to pull the waterfall part, the mechanism part, in and out of the card. So I just adhered this with some double-sided tape, and then I do also put some liquid glue on there. Now you want to make sure, if you're using liquid glue or whatever kind of adhesive, that you do not adhere that strip, that 8-inch by 1-inch strip, to that ribbon. So that has to be able to stay there and move. Now I'm going to let that sit over on the side and dry while I put the front of this card together. So I picked out my pattern papers, and I'm just going to place them on there. And then I just had some ephemera that I'm going to pop on there, and a couple of the pieces I am going to pop up with some foam tape to give the front of the card a little bit of dimension. And I don't know why I was using liquid glue and the tape runner. I really have no idea what I was thinking when I did that. So I do pop up the little sentiment piece, and then like I said, I do end up popping up a couple of the little images, just like I said, to give it a little bit of dimension. And then to finish off the front of it, I'm going to just add some enamel dots. and that will finish off the front of the card. And then we'll go back, because the mechanism, for the most part, everything is done with that. You really just have to glue it in place in the inside of the card. But like I said, you do not want to have that ribbon sticking to that panel, because that has to go in and out, slide through there. And that's what's going to make your waterfall effect happen. So here I'm just kind of making sure that it's going to fit inside and what it looks like and everything. And like I said, if you had that back panel a little bit longer, you'll see. Like I said, I absolutely love how this card came out, and even though it was a little short, I definitely am still keeping this card because I love how it turned out. I think it's adorable. So I am going to use the 1/4 inch double-sided adhesive for this because I know it's nice and strong and it'll stick in place where I want it, because that strip is the only thing that's going to be holding that in the card. So that whole big panel is only being held by that one little strip. So you do want to make sure whatever you're using, whatever adhesive you're using, is really, really good adhesive, and it's going to make sure that it stays down there. Then just line that up inside of your card, and that's it. So now you'll see here when I pull, the mechanism works perfectly. However, when I try to push it back in is when it gives me a little bit of trouble, because you have to kind of push it in past that last one. But otherwise, it works great, like I said. So waterfalls are great. Definitely check that out. Try to make one. I would love to see them. I hope everybody has a great day. Take care, stay healthy, and see you next time.